Well, my friends, we have arrived at last to the final of the dragons in this series. It's time for the Silver Dragon. Silver dragons are perhaps my favorite. I know I might have said that about gold dragons, but silver dragons have a penchant for being social a bit more than the other good dragons, and for that reason alone, I think there's a lot of opportunity to integrate a silver dragon into your campaign. Let's take a look at silver dragons, where they live, what they like, and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll talk about some ideas for how you can use them. The friendliest and most social of the metallic dragons, silver dragons cheerfully assist good creatures in need. A silver dragon shimmers as if sculpted from pure metal, its face given a noble cast by its high eyes and sweeping beard-like chin spikes. A spiny frill rises high over its head, tracing down its neck to the tip of its tail. A silver wormling's scales are blue-gray with silver highlights. As the dragon approaches adulthood, its color gradually brightens until its individual scales are barely visible. As a silver dragon grows older, its pupils fade until its eyes resemble orbs of mercury. Silver dragons believe that living a moral life involves doing good deeds and ensuring that one's actions cause no undeserved harm to other sentient beings. They don't take it upon themselves to root out evil, as gold and bronze dragons do, but they will gladly oppose creatures that dare to commit evil acts or harm the innocent. Silver dragons enjoy the company of other silver dragons. Their only true friendships outside their own kin arise in the company of humanoids, and many silver dragons spend as much time in humanoid form as they do in draconic form. A silver dragon adopts a benign humanoid persona, such as a kindly old sage or a young wanderer, and it often has mortal companions with whom it develops strong friendships. Silver dragons must step away from their humanoid lives on a regular basis, returning to their true forms to mate and rear offspring, or to tend to their hoards and personal affairs. Because many lose track of time while away, they sometimes return to find that their companions have grown old or died. Silver dragons often end up befriending several generations of humanoids within a single family as a result. Silver dragons befriend humanoids of all races, but shorter-lived races, such as humans, spark their curiosity in a way the longer-lived elves and dwarves don't. Humans have a drive and zest for life that silver dragons find fascinating. Silver dragons love to possess relics of humanoid history. This includes great piles of coins they covet, minted by current and fallen humanoid empires, as well as art objects and fine jewelry crafted by numerous races. Other treasures that make up their hoards can include intact ships, the remains of kings and queens, thrones, the crown jewels of ancient empires, inventions and contraptions, and monoliths carried from the ruins of fallen cities. Silver dragons dwell among the clouds, making their lairs on secluded cold mountain peaks. Though many are comfortable in natural cavern complexes or abandoned mines, silver dragons covet the lost outposts of humanoid civilization. An abandoned mountaintop citadel or a remote tower raised by a long-dead wizard is the sort of lair that every silver dragon dreams of. So let's think about this for a moment. These are creatures who value humanoid interaction, and specifically the shorter-lived humans, because of their zest for life. And in a lot of ways, as I've researched the silver dragon and thought about it, I keep thinking about Gandalf. Now, I know you Tolkien purists are going to tell me that Gandalf was more of an angel and definitely not a polymorphed dragon. But it's not so much that I actually believe Gandalf was a silver dragon, but that persona, that character of this kind of person who has known many generations of a family and kind of regularly visits or, occasionally visits and maintains friendships with these people over lifetime or lifetimes is kind of that idea. And I think that's really cool when, as a DM, you're thinking about, how do I use a silver dragon in a long-term campaign? And one really easy way is by starting off that relationship at a younger level. If you're a newer player to D&D and you haven't had the opportunity to play through an entire lifetime of a character, or even multiple generations of a character, I'll tell you that as somebody who's played for decades, it isn't very common. oftentimes your characters die. Before they die of natural causes, they die in combat or on adventures. But if you do have the opportunity to play through an entire lifetime, and maybe even in your campaign, you have a family and you have offspring and your children become your next character in the next iteration of that campaign. If you're in any kind of longevity-oriented campaign, or your DM has set it up so that all of your heroic characters have reached a certain level, high level, and now their children, 25 years later, are going to be the new party. That's really fun. It's really fun. And I could say it hasn't happened with me a lot, but when it has happened, or when I've been in games where people are playing the children of their original characters, it's kind of cool. Because you, in effect, by doing that, as a group, the players and the DM, you're creating your own lore. You're creating your own lore, which is one of the most beautiful things that you can do with a role-playing game. And I strongly suggest, if you haven't tried doing this, try doing it. It's a lot of fun to see where you can go with that. And I think what's cool, too, is that, the parent character might have been a fighter, let's say, or a paladin, and maybe their child really didn't go that route for whatever reason, and that's part of the cool backstory that you can create. Maybe their child was like, I really want to study wizardry, or some kind of variation. Or maybe one of the players in your party had a wizard, and that wizard hoped that his daughter would follow in his footsteps and become a wizard, and she was like, nah, Dad, I'm good being a rogue. Or even having a character who actually follows in their parents' footsteps and becomes the same class. All of those are really cool things. And you can tie these things together with this recurring NPC of the Silver Dragon. Now, one thing that I will say is that with any of the dragons we've talked about, especially the metallics who can change shape, you don't want your dragon to become the NPC that comes and bails everybody out at the last minute and comes and saves the day constantly. That's not a good use of an NPC, especially a powerful NPC. You don't want an ally to always be there for the party, to always bail them out, to always be there in the nick of time to heal them right before they get killed. But you can have that person be that NPC, that Silver Dragon. You can have that be somebody who kind of helps drive the plot or helps reinforce, if you're running more of an open living world or a sandbox, helps kind of facilitate what the players want to do. But again, it must be done with balance. It must be done carefully. Some of the things that I think about with a Silver Dragon. You could start off at low level with a Wyrmling who is part of a Silver Dragon family, because remember, Silver Dragons, they like their family. I think of them as like very family-oriented dragons. So in this context, I wouldn't say like they find a Silver Dragon orphan, I would say that the Silver Dragon Wyrmling could be the first iteration of Silver Dragons that your party comes across, and maybe that little Wyrmling helps them out with some obstacle as they're traveling across the mountain range of blah, blah, blah. And maybe not even in a combat way. Maybe the Silver Dragon just comes and tells them where there's a shortcut through the mountains, or tells them, warns them about a dangerous area where there's some hill giants, something helpful, but not like saving the day, right? And maybe then at mid-level, they meet the older brother or sister, the young Silver Dragon of that same family, who is like, oh yeah, I know where you guys are headed, the old citadel of such and such. Yes, my family used to be guardians of that area until the Knolls took over, or whatever it is. So again, kind of as an information source, an interesting character to meet up with. Well, after a couple kind of casual encounters with the Silver Dragons, you can introduce your party to like the matron or the patriarch of this Silver Dragon family, and you can integrate them in that changed self humanoid form that they take. So the party might not necessarily make the connection between the younger Wyrmling and the young Silver Dragons that they met earlier and this new, NPC who seems to be friendly and helpful that ends up traveling with them around a lot. And you could have that NPC dip, in between major story arcs, and every few adventures, that NPC Silver Dragon could be like, it is time for me to return to the Citadel, but I will, I will hope to see you soon. Friends, take care of yourselves and each other, and have some positive, uplifting message that he or she recurringly uses to, help the party maintain high spirits and good morale. And down the line, maybe 10th level or higher, is where maybe that NPC would reveal themselves as what they are, the ancient Silver Dragon. And it doesn't even have to be ancient, it could just be an adult. But I think it would be cool to integrate that as a person who is in the campaign as an NPC, but not bailing out the party every time they do something, or coming in clutch at the last minute to save everybody, but just a recurring goodly person who is there to help when people of evil or factions of evil are disrupting life, and is always kind of somebody that they run into. Maybe a town was just taken out by a massive horde of gnolls, and now the party is trying to help out the villagers who survived, and they come across their old friend, old Johann, the Silverbeard, and he's tending to people's wounds and stuff, and then he has some information about the Gnoll band, and he can point the party in the right direction, and maybe he goes with them, or maybe he doesn't, but just this recurring character that they kind of run into, I think is really cool. Now, once the Silver Dragon is revealed, their true identity, then you can get into some of these cool things. And maybe you can hint at what they like with things at first where they're in their humanoid form, and maybe they're at a tavern or an inn, and they notice that old Johann the Silverbeard pays for their meal with these silver coins, and somebody with a high passive perception, you could just be like, yeah, you notice that the minting on these coins is very unfamiliar. It doesn't really look like anything that you've seen in the area before. And then maybe if they want to investigate further, or they make a successful history check, they will discover that these coins were minted like 1,000 years ago in the kingdom of Zabazaba, which had fallen centuries ago, and no one's seen these kind of coins around in years, right? Or you could have like other references where the Silver Dragon kind of references something that's anachronistic, meaning like out of the timeline that would make sense for your setting. And just, kind of drop these little cool foreshadowing and hints about the persona that the Silver Dragon is occupying. Maybe it's some strange custom that they do, or maybe it's a reference to a bard song that like nobody's heard of, and then they kind of look into it, or maybe you have a bard in the party, and the bard kind of does some research into it, and they find out that this ballad was written 600 years ago about the princess of some fallen kingdom, and like how odd that old Johann would know this, and how old is old Johann, and like that kind of stuff. So I think if you look at what the Silver Dragons like, what they hoard in their treasure hoards, it can give you some ideas for how to play that persona. And maybe you'll choose to never reveal that old Johann the Silverbeard is a Silver Dragon, and that's fine too. Take it and run with it. Do as you wish. Or maybe you decide to reveal it earlier in the campaign, but you don't reveal that the Silver Dragon who meets the party is old Johann. So they meet the persona, and then they also meet the Silver Dragon, but it's kind of like one of those things where like Bruce Wayne, Batman, Bruce Wayne, Batman, but we never see them at the same time. Let's take a look at stats and what these amazing creatures are capable of doing. We'll start off with the lair actions. So the dragon creates fog as if it had cast the fog cloud spell. The fog lasts until initiative count 20 on the next round. A blisteringly cold wind blows through the lair near the dragon. Each creature within 120 feet of the dragon must succeed on a DC 15 con save or take 1d10 cold damage. Gases and vapors are dispersed by the wind, and unprotected flames are extinguished. Protected flames, such as lanterns, have a 50% chance of being extinguished. Those are not really badass lair actions, to be honest with you. I think those are what I'd call like flavor things, just to give you the impression of their mastery over the cloudy domains in which they live. Regional effects. Once per day, the dragon can alter the weather in a 6-mile radius centered on its lair. The dragon doesn't need to be outdoors, otherwise the effect is identical to the control weather spell. Within 1 mile of the lair, winds buoy non-evil creatures that fall due to no act of the dragons or its allies. Such creatures descend at a rate of 60 feet per round and take no falling damage. Wow. Well, that's kind of cool, actually. Given days or longer to work, the dragon can make clouds and fog within its lair as solid as stone, forming structures and other objects as it wishes. Okay, that's a baller move. So they can make like a cloud castle that has physical form. That is pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, Silver Dragon Wormlings. Let's start with the babies and work our way up. AC 17, hit points 68 plus 18. They have a bite and, of course, 2 breath weapons. The non-lethal breath weapon would be the Paralyzing Breath, which is the dragon exhales paralyzing gas in a 15-foot cone. Each creature in that area must succeed in a DC 13 con save or be paralyzed for 1 minute. Then they have Cold Breath. Dragon exhales an icy blast in a 15-foot cone. Each creature in that area must make a DC 13 con save, taking 4d8 cold damage on a failed save. So even the little baby silver wormling is still a pretty tough guy. Then, of course, with the age category, it scales up. So then we have the young silver dragon, AC 18, hit points 16d10 plus 80, multi-attack with bites and claws. Cold Breath becomes a 30-foot cone, DC 17 con save, or 12d8 cold damage. Wow. And Paralyzing Breath also scales up, 30-foot cone, DC 17 con save, or paralyzed for a minute. Now, actually, I would say I find that interesting. I would think that as it scales up, the duration of the paralysis would last longer too. Like it would go up to 2 minutes or 5 minutes. Let's see. Adult Silver Dragon, all those same goodies. Bite, claw, tail, frightful presence. Cold Breath is a 60-foot cone now, DC 20 con save, 13d8 cold damage. Paralyzing Breath is a 60-foot cone, DC 20 con save, paralysis for 1 minute. Again, 1 minute. You know, if you wanted to make that last longer, you could. You know why? Because you're the DM. Change shape. So as an adult, they get that feature. And then they get those 3 legendary actions that all adults and ancients get, the detect tail attack and the wing attack. Finally, we have the ancient silver dragon, a mighty and powerful benevolent force. Armor class 22, hit points 25d20 plus 225. Not bad. Legendary resistance 3 times a day. In case you've never tuned into any of the other videos, dragons have legendary resistance. So if they fail a saving throw, they can just choose to succeed instead. 3 times a day. They have multi-attack, bite, claw, and tail. They have frightful presence. They have cold breath, paralyzing breath, and change shape. At the ancient silver dragon level, cold breath is a 90-foot cone with a DC 24 con save, or you take 15d8 cold damage. Ouch. Paralyzing breath is also a 90-foot cone, DC 24 con save, or you're paralyzed for 1 minute. See, that's lame. I'm calling BS on that. So my advice is scale up the length of the paralysis as you scale up the age. So a wormling paralyzes somebody for 1 minute. I would scale that up then to the young silver dragon, maybe is a 5 minute. The adult silver dragon could be 10 minutes or a half an hour or an hour. The ancient silver dragon, if you get paralyzed by the ancient silver dragon, it should be like 24 hours. Just you're paralyzed for 24 hours. Too bad, because it's ancient. That's how I would roll. I mean, imagine that. Imagine that your party of heroes is going up against an evil faction of, some horrible evil group of monsters or of humanoids or a mix of those things. And their friend, their ancient silver dragon ally, could fly through and cold breath everybody, but maybe there's some important prisoners amongst that faction, so they don't want to kill everybody, but they can sure as heck fly over and strafe a big cone of paralyzing breath over that group, which buys the time for the heroes to run in and infiltrate and rescue the prisoners and then leave. Now, 1 minute's not a lot of time to do that in, so think about that. You can always change the rules because you're the DM. As long as it's fair, be fair. Don't use these against your players because they're good. Unless your players are an evil party, then destroy them. I think that about summarizes it. So again, I think the Silver Dragon, to kind of end the series, is a great example of how you could take this monster from the monster manual and really make them a pivotal character, an NPC in your campaign. And again, remember the balance. Don't make this into some hero who automatically saves the day every time the party gets in trouble. Figure out how to use that character in your campaign setting. Make the Silver Dragon meaningful, helpful, informative, maybe even entertaining with their anachronistic comments or their strange collection of items that they always seem to have that are from another time. Be creative with it and have fun. I have enjoyed doing the Dragon series, and I hope you guys have appreciated it. And I look forward to getting back into other monsters on Monster Monday. But if you have any great stories about how you've encountered silver dragons, or as a DM, how you've used them in your games, please leave them in the comments below. I love to read your stories. I love to read your ideas about how to use these creatures, and the rest of the people in the community enjoy it as well. So until we meet again, that's been Dragons.